Oh, you just met him, okay. I just said, you know everybody in town, I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, Nan, how are you, Nan?
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Athens Public Library. Welcome to our walk-in event, the Poetry Read-In. This event is co-organized with our partners, the Athens Poetry Group, who meet here at the library in the small meeting room every other Tuesday from 10 a.m. till noon. Today, people can either read poetry they themselves have written or favorite poems by other authors. I ask that each reader or reciter give his or her name, the name of the poem, and the author of the poem. You can choose to speak at the table, the easy chair, or the lectern. Please make use of the microphone for the benefit of those in the audience who are hard of hearing. Now let us begin our celebration of National Poetry Month.
Yay.
Welcome. If any of you visitors have brought poems with you that you would like to read, you're welcome to do so after we after we read our poems. We're going to go in reverse alpha order. And that means that Robin Schaefer is going to be our first poet.
Okay. 3 short poems. The first one is for my granddaughter, Emma, who's in kindergarten. Okay. In bloom. When did you grow so self-assured? Every day you expand your world. You tell me your school has a restaurant, a library full of hundreds of books. The big kids are on the 2nd floor, and you are just beginning. You said you're the shortest in the class. As you pump the swing higher and higher, a sheet of yellow hair flies high. You are the one closest to the sky. I look for your fingers painted with colors an artist creates in my kitchen. You open my sewing box, choosing the thread. You are determined to mend a stuffed bunny. You told me you'd never let anybody be broken. On an April day, you gathered ornaments, pink petals from a cherry tree and a redbud, violets and dandelions picked from the grass to adorn a pine tree, the smallest one we have, empty of spring flowers. Once you colored the faces of fairies. You tested the skin tones carefully. You told me you wished for glowing brown skin like some of your friends from other countries. I listen when you slip a brand new word into a sentence and you get it just right, like the way you catch a firefly holding on to light. Every day you grow tall inside your mind. The next one is of a little boy who I was his teacher for a very short time when I was around 23 or something, so I would have to treble that now, but in San Antonio. So, scars. A knee-high boy, mocha color skin, like the picture on copper-toned sunscreen, a beaming swimmer. A smile turned up on one side only. His eyes light up the face. The crown of his head, a puzzle pattern like a turtle's back when it's wet and shiny. Parts of his body expose the scars that travel across his tiny hands and arms, making a map that trails up his sleeves, his printed t-shirt, of a blue bicycle. Maybe he rode one before the fire. His ears are occluded. They can block unkind words. but the faces of people who find him repulsive send him a message without intending. Is it fear of the fire? Could they catch it somehow, like influenza? There are tricks and diversions, bubbles and puppies, chocolate ice cream to make a toddler jolly. If only his childhood spirit could last through the skin grafts, if people could see past his scars. Okay, this last one is for the Susquehanna River, where I grew up and loved dearly. I live between water and sky. I come from the Susquehanna, misty mornings, blue boats in shallow water. Anglers stand in the rapids, white water roaring over the rocks. Changes are part of my psyche, like the seagulls and swans that arrived unexpectedly, new to the river, but known to the skies and the currents. I come from spring floods, brown water spreads across the fields, our basement and up the stairs. Once it spilled over the second floor. You have to love the river enough to brave disasters, enough to stay, enough the way I love my children beyond any limits. I come from the bridge of my childhood. Frosted white globes cast an eerie glow in twilight. I watch the river bending to dark. I feel air above me and the air below. On the bridge I live between water and sky. I sense the solidity under my feet and my arms lifting up, ready to fly.
Kathy, you follow. And then, Michael, is this correct as far as the sound is concerned?
Yeah.
Okay, y'all, if you would not clap for each poem, just wait till the end. It'll make me self-conscious. Heebie-jeebies. Is getting old something like going crazy? Not for everyone, but maybe for me. The inner eye sees more and differently than the external one. Decades drop away only to reconnect where they choose. Sometimes I speak what comes to mind unedited. I make a mosaic which I love, and others stare at it in embarrassed silence. And my poems, methinks you can judge for yourself. Death. With age comes a love of family history. Someone will remember us, won't they? Ancestor worship wasn't such a bad idea. They were here a moment ago, then left. Where are they hiding? Here, then gone. A game of hide and seek forever, yet not so much fun. They're so careful to say, bury her remains. They're really saying, bury her, aren't they? They say seeing is believing, but not death. Going. She was not leaving much behind, just an ordinary history with too much kowtowing and self-effacement. Had she really expected to see her misspent life flash before her eyes? Now she lies on cotton sheets a cocoon curled into herself inside this benevolent holding cell, mesmerized by the soft click of an overhead fan. The sound whispers that she is still alive. During the split second when she is siphoned away with no warning, will she ken why the sound has stopped? The big bed. The sun traces a lace of shade atop the empty husks as it makes its inexorable pass over the planted bed, dotted with name tags. The bed is not soft, but huge, peppered with hare and groundhog, bird and butterfly, ready and waiting for all God's children. My mirror is a liar. It is my 5th birthday, and I am in pigtails swinging on the garage door, wondering if I will still be me when I am grown. 80 years later, I am. Where art thou? Squabbling in the planet's sandbox, howling from a fistful of the stuff into streaming eyes, bloodline against itself. Domesticated life forms, not cloned, rather tainted with the freedom to differ in their cousin rivalry. Why are the earth's many gods only uncles? Let us hear from Grandfather, who in his infinite wisdom must surely reunite us all.
These are my poems. The Dance. Here we are in the luscious middle of an April day, in the warming and the singing of the birds, dizzy on nectar, butterflies fly by to their next fix. The ground is pulsating in its greenness and with the expansion of many tender roots. Under logs and wood, ants and earthworms stir. All is alive. It is the spring dance. Earth Day. What I love most here on earth is the pervasive green, the easy growth, the flowered air, the changeable sky, and storied clouds. I also love soaring songs of birds, the morning dew that drapes the earth, and dreams that fall out of the blue. Time. I grabbed Time by the scruff of the neck today, and I said, looking right into Time's eyes, "Look here, you don't exist." Time disappeared, and there I wasn't. Aardvark. If I were an aardvark, I'd likely be dining on termites. And so, you see, a friend to those in wooden abodes. I could save them a mint just by eating loads of ill-behaved bugs. And because I'd have such a powerful snout, I dare you to challenge my unique dining out. If you were a wisp of cloud and I were a rainbow, our lives would be short and sweet. If you were a Luna moth and I were a snowman, we wouldn't last a week. If you were an apple tree and I were a peach, we'd have such fruitful lives. If you were a honeybee and I were a hungry bear, we'd be at 6s and 5s. If you were a tiger lily and I were a leopard, we'd both be covered with spots. If you were an inlet and I were a lake, we'd each be covered with yachts.
My own poems. The first couple are going to be about cats. Cats are, or kittens anyway, are the most lovable creatures, I guess, in our current American culture. TV watchers always gush over cats. The kitten is the symbol of what's nice and decent. Cats have a history in poetry. Think of T.S. Eliot and cats. Anyone that knows about poetry and has heard about T.S. Eliot and has heard about cats, right? And I am most admiring of the cats that appeared on the day after our current president was inaugurated. And that's wonderful, all those women, you women, who are fulfilling your role as cats with your little cat hats and so on. That's wonderful. Anyway, cats that are. The first poem is a poem that comes from Athens. It's inspired by the happenings on the corner of Central Avenue and Clark Street. Some of you may be familiar with that. And this is called Peace at One's Fingertips. A young man, he had a heavy book bag, so he must have been a student, leaned over and stroked and gently felt the lazy bones of the cat lying on the sidewalk, taking in the sunshine. The man leaned over again and then again to touch and to sense the calm and peace of the sun-warm cat, comfortable, enjoying the day, the earth, his peace with it. The young man thought of the Russian Revolution about which he had just been reading, and he thought of more current times. Where is the peace so available to this symbolic cat on this sunny afternoon? Where is the peace in the Middle East, in the meeting rooms of the nation's capital, among neighbors on this street, at the frontiers of grasping, discontented peoples? It is so easy, the peace of this cat, the warmth of sunshine, stopping to stroke a loving, appreciative being that knows luxury and tranquility and security, among others, without having a big house, a big car, a big bank account, or an audience of fools fawning over him, fools not knowing what they want because, unlike the sunshine on this sidewalk, it is all too complicated. The young man, seeking peace, leaned over once again and reached to stroke the welcoming cat. The next cat is one that I know more personally. This is Bowtie. Bowtie is the family's, for 4 years now, feral cat. He hangs around to get fed. I can approach him. It took me a year before I could touch him. But now I can touch him and tickle him and pull his tail and everything else. And he allows that if everything is right. If not, he will run away from me. But nobody else can approach him. He's truly a feral cat. So when he showed up, I wrote these lines. Limits on empathy. That growing kitten, That growing kitten, not yet a big cat, scrawny and rumpled, mostly black, crept into sight at the edge of the wood. I was reluctant to give aid, though knowing I could. The pleas of this little animal, though not stated in language, were as comprehensible and natural as those of a child smitten with hunger's anguish. There is as much soul in these as in human eyes, or in those of religious insurgents flaming so wild. Is it fair to oneself to realize that help here is as needed as with that child? Our lives are complete with personal dependency, compounded with charity pleas and the daily news. Though dependency varies in degree and severity, deny interdependence, and we would all lose. Thank you, both. And next we go to another cat named Slinky. He was our cat when we lived down on the shores of the Atlantic in South Florida. This is called Ocean Ease. The ocean lay serene and beckoning. Slinky sat in that classic cat pose, still and meditative in his striped gray suit, as he gazed out over the blue from the shore of the flat, calm ocean, endless to the limits of the horizon. He is nothing but quiet, steady, his vision centered at one with his posture. I think I feel what he feels and see what he sees. Nothing occurred, but let's say he was at one with far out and with where he sat. Would you think we could communicate from one species to another? Can it be that species difference is not important in a transcendent time as that? Robert Frost wrote, quote, "The people along the sand all turn and look one way. They turn their back on the land. They look at the sea all day. They cannot look out far. They cannot look in deep. But when was that ever a bar to any watch they keep?" Can we say how Slinky differs from those people along the sand? For he came time and again and contemplated the same as we. Is that my time, do you think?
I don't know, some people went longer than I anticipated. I don't know.
More.
Well, here's one about the ocean also called Ocean Sea. Those of you who have a little familiarity with the history of poetry will recognize a couple of phrases here, otherwise so goes it. It's said of Dorothy Wordsworth, the first time she saw the sea as a little girl, she burst into tears. Little bilingual Nicole Hagstrom, carried in arms at Crandon Park and down to the Atlantic, with widened eyes, full of delight, exclaimed, "Quanta agua!" And you, when you first glimpsed that ocean or that expansive lake, were captured and had to draw near. We all stand and stare. We don't know what or who's out there, but far out and deep is where all nature's secrets they keep. All this natural magic once again captured Dorothy Wordsworth after sundown, and again through tears she saw the moon shone like herrings in the water. We stood with her, borrowing her daffodil-filled imagination, and we too looked out, and our melting hearts burst into tears.
This one is titled Deborah, who was Larry's mother-in-law's cat, which they inherited at her death. Deborah, our house cat, was a brat who wittingly escaped out our door, racing to new unknown places to explore, darting off into the dark night from our home to scope the neighborhood while out on the roam. She was gone for 2 long days, keeping our household in a haze. After holding our hearts in a state of frantic and 2 days of painful panic, you'd think we would receive an apology, but all we got was a cat experiencing starvation, deprivation of attention, and exhaustion. What we got upon our return was a cat who wanted a double serving of food, a triple serving of petting to improve her mood, and a full night of uninterrupted sleep. We took lost cat flyers to all our neighborhood. Deborah ignored our calls on each street for kitty, kitty, kitty. She evaded our neighbors' searching eyes that proved her to be so witty. Now we thank each neighbor for their help and concern. We have hopes that we and our Deborah have learned. Upon entering our door, we've learned to stomp our foot to scare her back in. She has learned to come back home before she gets too thin, which is proven by her 2 short-term escapes of 1 to 2 hours since her 2-day escapade, when both times she returned on her own initiative without our aid. We all 3 have learned how very important we are to each other. We've learned our bond is strong as loving our sisters and brothers. We've learned that our mutual love is expressed through our cuddling, her purring, our hugging, and her snuggling.
Okie. This is about Too Much Shiva. And this is, again, with apologies to Robert Oppenheimer, who after helping work on the hydrogen bomb during World War II, saw the utter destruction of Hiroshima and the destruction of worlds, and was just a little bit overwhelmed. And it said, I'm Shiva, destroyer of worlds. Too much Shiva. Oh, all this Shiva going on. North Korea, MOAB, and collapsing fossil works in Afghanistan. Shemi deaths as collateral damage. Our fearless leaders' egos, territorial excrement to manage. Too much Shiva. Neotenic rapist. Not enough copper in his past. Thin-skinned, abraded, abrasive, more and more corrosive. Too much Shiva. Of course, him being the highest IQ-ish poetess ever, and so religious too, he couldn't know shit from Shiva or even Shinola. Too much Shiva. Again, and the thing, I tend to be rather liberal, so I'm sorry if this upsets anybody. Listen, the primary mental and anal sphincter in America, aka the Donald. If only we could excise the id from the Donald. We could have excised the penis from good old Sigmund. All that would be left is a perpetual fish face on the Hindenburg, pre-explosion, of course. A German ship and a German superego. More psychological castration, and all that would be left is a wheel with no bridge to sell. To the sun. Maelstrom of hydrogen atoms, forced from the depths of the Big Bang, reverberating from energy to matter in nanoseconds. Gravitational waves producing islands of density, where eons gather. When eons gather, those droplets into stars of diluvian densities and sizes, swirling in kaleidoscopic eddies in infinity's expanse. Threshold size mandates compaction and corresponding escalation of internal heat and nuclear fusion, and the transmogrification of hydrogen ions to helium. In larger stars, the much larger size and density creates dystrophic catalysis and gravitational imploding. Nucleic gluttony with all of the heavier elements coming into Genesis-like existence in nanoseconds rather than a week-long creative endeavor. Critical size can result in critical explosion, blasting stardust into nascent solar systems, seeding life into Edenic locales. Yes, we are stardust. And that stardust looks very nice in my daffodils. A deity-filled life. The universe is a large, wonderful, and mystery-laden place. Its origin from a singularity, or the conjunction of two or more black holes, or from the machinations of the mind or hand of God. What was before the singularity, the black hole or holes, or the mind or hand of God, is a moot point. The human mind cannot comprehend any of it. Mathematical conjecture or deity-driven theosophizing are just noise to pacify the brain while failing to perceive the splendid entirety. Eternity or the lack of a comprehensible beginning, a moral and theological trajectory, and a satisfying end are limitations to maybe original sin. For trying to think, act, and foresee as God is the ultimate act of hubris. Maybe the elephants on the back of a turtle who swims through the ether of space aren't such a bad as the idea after all. But where in hell's the edge? Let's be a little bit lighter. Neo-Pogo, and this is with kudos to good old Walt Kelly, not Gene Kelly. We have met the enemy and he is us. The one who's a possum savant, who no more than a possum should want. His Everglades home was being foreclosed, its ecology was hosed, his evolution closed, his future in error, no eon, no epoch or era. And just like all of our poetry group, we occasionally scrabble, usually on Monday nights, for something to write about. Sometimes we fail miserably. Hey you, or is it wherefore art thou? Calliope, Eutrope, Erato, and Eponymia, muses all, is it, and Julian is the sun, or perchance made glorious summer by the sun of York. How do you call upon your own personal muse? Are they numerous, or does one suffice for writers everywhere? Are they unionized, have differing shifts? Or more terrifying, do they have favorites? Is that why some of us really do stink? And so, if you're like the balm of Gilead. How do our egos interact with the muse's promptings? Are we all like Forrest Foster Jenkins with poorly rhymed or syncopated doggerel? Imagining that we write the line of the Shakespeare or Milton, or traipse the garden path with Emily or Eliot? Are we too polite with each other? Or are rhythm critiques mandatory? Or would that be like beating a dead horse? That no matter how many delicate promptings from our muses or each other, they would still be putting lipstick on a pig. And that's me.
Poets often protest when they're reading a poem that the voice in the poem is not them, that it may be some imaginary figure entirely. But in the case of the first poem that I write, it is highly personal and in fact somewhat autobiographical. It's a narrative poem. When my wife died in 1999, she donated her body to the medical school. And I thought that was a grand idea, and so I did the same thing afterwards. So I have a little card in my wallet that says, upon my death, please call the medical school, come get the corpse. And so I write about that. And I thought about it a bit. In the audience is my favorite brother-in-law, Dr. Charles Heinberg, who's visiting me from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I asked him this question. I said, do you guys in medical school ever make fun of your vaginas? And He said, well, you know, death is hard to deal with, and we try to treat everybody with dignity, but sometimes, just to lighten the mood, we make fun and we make jokes about the bodies. Well, I thought about that. Anyway, this is the premise for my point. So I call it toe tag, a note to the medical students. I have agreed to donate my body to the medical school. I've always been a teacher. Why not become a visual aid? Let future doctors learn their art with hands-on training. At death, I'm leaving a note on my toe, telling them that the cold corpse they see before them was once a person, and reminding them that I was once quick. I will say, I have flown about the world on wings of silver birds. I have sailed the 7 seas on mighty cruise liners. I received advanced degrees and enjoyed teaching. I loved a wonderful wife and sired 4 fine children. I adored my 10 grandkids and they loved me in turn. I liked poetry a lot and wrote a few pretty good poems. Dear students, please tell no crude jokes about my aged body. I want you to know what Deborah Kerr said in the film Tea and Sympathy. Remember, she said to her young lover, years from now, when you talk about this, and you will, be kind. After death, here's the message I send to you from the other side. Please treat my mortal remains with a modicum of dignity. And please, please be aware that I'm very ticklish under my arms. My next poem is about Athens. I ought to dedicate to the walkers who did the Walk for Science today, I guess. This is called Walking the World in Athens, Ohio. Our little town of Athens is ideal for walkers. A cherished bike path, right outside our window here, a cherished bike path hugs the Hocking River. Scenic footpaths meander through hilly parks. But I am old now, and with increasingly creaky joints, I mostly hike at the city recreation center. A daily dose of physical exertion is good medicine. It is a tonic to walk and talk with dear old friends. But sometimes I walk alone and I fall into reveries. As I click off laps around the indoor oval track, a casual observer might think I am going nowhere, just another oldster strutting his bony drumsticks. No, mentally I am elsewhere, deftly doing daring deeds. I avoid Japanese bayonets on the Bataan Death March. I stagger from Russia with Napoleon's freezing troops. My ears ring with the throbbing beats of Sousa marches. Sometimes I'm in Gaul on a fast forced march with Caesar. I can stride purposely with Mao on his epic long march. Once, to see how it would feel, pray good God forgive me, I goose-stepped in Nazi jackboots on a torchlight parade. I clasped hands with Dr. King on the long, hot road to Selma. Often I stride at Gandhi's side on his salt march to the sea. I join the monk and monkey on the journey to the rest. Sometimes I just promenade pompously in my finest attire, recalling myself young, having just fallen in hot love again. Promenading, pacing, prancing, parading, plodding, shuffling, striding, strutting, strolling, and sauntering, my steady treading transports me as I walk my daily walk. My body remains near, but my mind flies where it pleases. With my workout done, I secretly savor my travel souvenirs. Couple more, okay on time?
Go for it.
Well, I guess.
I'll do a couple more, they're short. Carl Sandburg wrote a very famous poem, I'm sure you all know it, called Chicago. It was, you know, the hog butcher of the world, city of strong shoulders, and it goes on in a kind of rhapsodic voice about the city of Chicago. I thought it'd be fun to play with our little town and try to copy the style of that poem for Athens, Ohio. So here it is, our town, Athens, Ohio, a la Carl Sandburg's Chicago. Site of Ohio University, locus of a former insane asylum, home of the Dairy Barn Art Museum, rural retreat for musicians, artists, and aging hippies, city of few sidewalks and the stooped shoulders. Athens is a hilly little town with hardly a flat spot in it. The flood-prone Hocking River slices right down its middle. People then said to be crazy used to live on one side of the river. On the other side, so-called sane people huddled near the university. The folks of Athens, however, soon lost track of which side was which. It's now admitted that crazy and sane people are mixed up on both sides. Ownership of the defunct mental hospital has now passed to Ohio University. OU students today with piercings and tattoos are perpetually youthful. Only the professors are unable to drink from the campus fountain of youth. Athens doesn't have a single strip club, a dirty bookstore, or a brothel that I know of. But we do have a Walmart, a Lowe's, a rocking farmer's market, and 6 Chinese restaurants. Our main street sports an old courthouse and a maze of bars and pizza parlors. The mayor and the university presidents make faces at each other in the Athens news. Oh, Athens, oh, oh, you are my very own town, and I love you, warts and all. Site of Ohio University, former locus of a loony bin, city of few sidewalks and many potholes, city of students and many retired people with stooped shoulders. One more very short one. This is an image, a memory that I have of my own father. When I was a very young child, he used to take us fishing and crabbing, and he would do something that I always thought was absolutely majestic. He would cast a shrimp net. You ever watched someone who was good at this cast a shrimp net? You will know what I'm talking about. It's many, many years ago. I was a very young kid. It's called Casting the Shrimp Net. My father, in a red woolen swimsuit, young, lean, smiling, stands thigh deep in low-tide water, twisting a lead-weighted net. His skin is sun-bronzed and wet. His taut muscles are flexed. One line is looped to his waist, the leaded line clenched in his teeth. Like a pitcher, he takes his time in a long, practiced wind-up. He glances back at me to confirm that I am watching. At last ready, he twists just so, and with a mighty heave, he casts the heavy shrimping net high over the water. The net flares open, expanding into blossom of glory, a diaphanous parachute, a white circle of perfection. It hangs in the air for an impossibly long, long, long moment. Then, in fully extended splendor, it splashes into the sea.
Yay. I'm Patricia Ercolino, and I'm glad I got to follow Felix because that first poem that he read had an impact on my life. I had always been an organ donor, but after hearing Felix's poem about toe tag, I went and I became a body donor. I figured OU has all my money, so they may as well get my body too, right? And also, As a result of that, one of these days, Linda and I are still in discussion about doing a program. I produce a television program called Sojourners Along the Way, and Felix has already agreed to read his poem and to participate in a discussion about why become a body donor. It is called Broken Pieces. Life can often be filled with many hurts and pains. Innocence is lost, and the child carries huge chains. Bondage, shame, disgrace, disgust, brokenness, guilt. The result of the experience often is a life that will wilt. A vibrant child now crawls inside themselves, trying to bury the images. Sadly, oftentimes, what is produced is burning and scarring carcinogens. A young child was not designed to carry the weight of others' misdeeds. For an adult's moment of pleasure, the recipient for a lifetime bleeds. Words never spoken, sworn to secrecy, a special relationship. No, one feels isolated. One thinks they're undesirable, unworthy, damaged goods, unlovable. All of this truly is a big fat lie that caused one inwardly to die. You were not to blame. Refuse the shame. There's one who can make it go away. Into outer darkness it must go and stay. Coping, hoping. The thoughts should not be a reproach, may not cause more self-reproach. Stamp them out as one would rid themselves of an ugly, disgusting cockroach. Allow the lover of one's soul to apply the balm of Gilead, the oil of grace. Be cleansed from others' wrongdoing. Be purified, the weight no more to face. Take the years and years of tears and give everything. Take all your broken pieces to the only one who can make them into a mosaic, a beautiful masterpiece.
Of Mara. The bells are tolling, tolling, the black bells toll. On the black rocks of Mora, the black waves roll. The old king was offended when Mara, king across the water, would not accept the old king's bid to marry Mora's daughter. The old king said, by God he'd wed the princess, none could deny him. So Mara called his men at arms, determined to defy him. The old king's navy crossed the sea, ships filled with men and horses, intent on storming Mara's shores to overwhelm his forces. The challenge of the Warasan rang through the humid air, and Mara's men charged forward. The old kings waited there. Horses, men, and weapons crashed together on the sand. There was terrible destruction and death on every hand. Men fought in the water, men fought on the shore. Some who fought left wives distraught, for they will fight no more. Now there's weeping and there's mourning on both sides of the water. Good men died for two kings' pride, and no one wed the daughter. The bells are tolling, tolling, the black bells toll. On the black rocks of Mara, the black waves roll. And slightly on a happier note, I can get it separated here. That's not it. This is Celebration. The beautiful lads and the lasses fair dance on the green to the piper's air, with never a thought, with never a care. It's spring, the flowers are blooming. They whirl and twirl beneath the sun, pleased that the dark and cold are done. Come join the dancing, everyone, it's spring, we're finished with winter. Kick up your heels and tap your toes, we're through with winter's slush and snows, and heavy, bulky winter clothes, it's spring. Sonnet from the Porch to Geese. I see you out there walking in my yard as if you paid me rent and had the right. You're noble birds, I grant you, and it's hard to not just stand here staring at the sight. I never thought on opening the door I'd seen what's here before my very eyes. 17 Canada geese or more. Your presence is a really big surprise. I do admire how noble you all are, plump and feathered. The word I want is sleek. I have no idea if you have traveled far or if you were out on the river late last week. Don't think, though, that I want you on my lawn. Get the flock out of here. Be gone. This is harness racing at the Athens County Fair. Drivers, bring up your horses. All right, fans, the mobile starting gates clear and they're off and pacing. Bunched up around the first turn, Cotton Candy is out in front. That one's mine's a tight second. They're stringing out on the far side. Open for business is heading for the front. Where'd he go? Coming up fast on the outside. Cotton Candy and where'd he go? Battling for the lead. Open for business is right in there. Uh-oh, Cotton Candy broke stride. Round the far turn and racing, Cotton Candy has himself sorted out and is back in the race. Open for business, and where'd he go? Are neck and neck around the third turn. Okay, folks, now we've got us a horse race. Watch Lazy Bones out of nowhere and pouring on the cold. Coming into the final turn, there's no air between Lazy Bones and where'd he go? Down the home stretch, Open for business is not giving an inch. Open for business, where'd he go? Lazy Bones. 3 of them out in front, but who's ahead? And here they come. And this is, we've had lots of things about Athens, so this is another Athens County thing. Athens County deluge. I'm sick to death of all this rain, sluicing off the roof, overwhelming gutters, downspouts groan like Downspouts groan like drowning men, muddy creeks out of its banks, the Hocking River's rising. I'm worried by incessant rain. Drawers stick and doors won't close. Shoes and raincoats will not dry. Federal creeks out of its banks, the Hocking River's rising. How much longer will it rain? We can't drive on flooded roads. Mildew's rampant everywhere. Sunday creeks out of its banks, the Hocking River's rising. Noah's neighbors knew such rain. Will our fate be the same as theirs? A boat's the thing to have right now. Margaret creeks out of its banks, the Hocking River's rising. Give me sunshine, no more rain. Will there be no end to this? We're all about to lose our minds. The Hocking's now out of its banks, the Ohio River's rising.
I was a member of Gloucester Garden Club, and we had to share reports, and so I thought I'd do a report on the flowers and the fairies, and so I found Irish myth, legend, and folklore, fairy and folk tales of the Irish peasantry at Little Professor. And I hadn't really understood or read, probably, William Butler Yeats. So I got a biography from the Athens library and kind of stayed up late and read the biography and didn't read the folklore much, but and probably didn't read the poems of Yeats, but I came up with enough to go on to tell Garden Club about what a poet thought the fairies were. So and I'm just going to read, it's right out of the introduction in this book. And by the way, I had a computer and I printed off pictures of Lady Gregory, and she reminded me kind of in sort of an awakening of my neighbor Margie, and then I'm also, John O'Leary looked like a prophet, and the map of Ireland kind of came out emerald. I had a cartridge of colored ink and didn't know how to replace it, but I got my report done. And I was going to say, listening to all of you, that this report's also about the brain, because, you know, I wanted to, you know, learn something about fairy tales and poets, and also it's about daffodils, and because they're flowers, it's about training your rose and cleaning your volcano, and it's about the potato, and so...
Destination in mind. Directed by a local to go down my road, at the fork, go right. I was supposed to arrive quicker than my previously traveled route. Instead, I found myself on a pitted, dusty road, not sure where it would end, questioning whether to turn around and go back the way I came. But why repeat myself? I had time and gas to keep going, to explore these rough roads, these pretty places in my new life.
Anyway, it led me to fantasize. This is pure fantasy about crows in Klang, a town in Malaysia. The crows of Klang. The town of Klang, perhaps one knows, is famed for murders of brazen crows. Marauding witches sweep the skies and sate the air with jarring cries. The crows of Klang are on the wing. They claw the air, bad luck they bring. They suck all things into their maw. They chill the heart and rend it raw. They call.